What's up, guys? This is Settle the Score from 98.1 WQAQ. My name is Hayden Nadler. We have guest stars Guy Kaufman from Quinnipiac and Sam Furban joining us today from American University. So one of the first things we're going to talk about this week is we're going to go into a little bit debate. One of the debate we're going to discuss right now is going to be, who do you think is the more iconic figure in sports, Derek Jeter or Tom Brady? I have my choice, but I'm going to let Sam and Guy talk to you guys a little bit about theirs, and we're going to have a little bit of debate about it. So what do you guys think about that? Who's the more iconic figure?
Guy, you want to start?
Yeah, so I'll start. For me, I'm a Yankees fan, first of all. So obviously I grew up, loving Jeter. My gut feeling says Jeter, but I do see a big reason for Brady. I think the first thing that makes me say Brady is because he's just a current superstar in a sport that's more, widely appealed. So I can see why you would choose him, but I just feel like Jeter exudes New York, which is what makes me feel like he's the more iconic figure. I don't know what you guys think along those lines.
I mean, so if you want to look at it championships-wise, this is one way you can possibly look at it. Jeter has 5 versus Brady 6. Not much of a difference, both champions. I'm also slightly biased as a Yankee fan myself, but it's really a toss-up. There's not really a quote-unquote right answer per se, but Jeter was class act. Brady, for the most part, carries himself pretty well. He's had his share of incidents with the Deflategate, and then, with Belichick and Kraft with their little videotape recordings, whatever you want to call it, Spygate. So iconic, it's pretty close. I would have to say my answer is just they're both great leaders for their respective sports, and yeah.
Okay, so my opinion on this one personally is going to be Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, from what I personally have observed, he's one of the most iconic figure really in all sports, in my personal opinion, just for what he stands for. For example, if in baseball, if you found out Derek Jeter was on steroids, honestly, you probably should just quit baseball altogether. It would be that big of a deal if they found out Derek Jeter was on steroids. Really. What Derek Jeter has in his resume right now, he has 5 World Series rings from 96, 98, 99, 2000, and 2009. So he's got 5 World Series rings. He's got the 6 most hits of all time, and he's 14-time All-Star and with 5 Gold Gloves as well, and he's a .310 hitter. So one of the things about Jeter that people don't understand, though, is that he represents so much more than just the game of baseball. That's what I think people don't really realize about Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter is so much more than just what his numbers represent. Derek Jeter represents a whole legacy and a whole game of baseball. For example, when you think of iconic moments too, if you want to be a legend and you want to be a legend in sports, all the greats have iconic moments. Michael Jordan has the shot versus Cleveland. He has the flu game. He has the shot also versus the Utah Jazz. One of the things Derek Jeter also has, he has a bunch of iconic moments. He has the flip in 2001 versus Oakland. He's got the jump throw. He's got the going into the crowd versus Boston. He's got the
November.
He's got the Jeffrey Mayer. Even other legends, they all have iconic moments. Magic Johnson has the hook shot versus the Boston.
So would you say that Brady doesn't have he has 6 rings, obviously, but
Brady's got the 6 rings, like you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there might not be as many iconic moments. Maybe the Edelman catch would be one. I guess it's kind of like the whole Super Bowl is an iconic moment, I guess. But I feel like he doesn't have those specific moments that are just, wow, this guy's a legend.
Well, that's also because you have to think about it this way. It's also the nature of their sports. Jeter, he hits a home run. That is so – he's, obviously against a pitcher. But, that's him hitting a home run against Arizona, Mr. November. Or was it against Baltimore? Was that Mr. November?
It was against Baltimore, yeah. He hit the home run with Jeffrey Meyer when the guy jumped.
That was against Baltimore.
And then the Mr. November was in the World Series.
Arizona. So those are more individualized moments, whereas Brady relies, yes, they're big moments. But in football, as a quarterback, you're obviously relying on someone else to come up with the play on the other end. So he threw it to Edelman, and Edelman made that crazy catch. I still don't understand how he caught that ball. But yeah, to Hayden's point, it's a pretty damn good argument.
But one of the things, even with Tom Brady though, he has all these rings, but he doesn't necessarily what Guy was saying. He doesn't necessarily have those individualized moments. And I think if you need any great legacy, I feel like you have to have certain individual moments to really cement them. I mean, no one's debating that Tom Brady is the better,
They both
probably
have
the better
similar
athlete and
careers,
accomplished more. Like, I'm not going to sit here
Yeah.
and tell you that Derek Jeter accomplished more than Tom Brady, because Tom Brady's so far and away the greatest quarterback. Derek Jeter isn't even the greatest at his position. Like, you
That's
could
very
say
true.
probably Cal Ripken. You could say Honus Wagner are better at shortstop. You can't say – for Tom Brady is 100% the greatest at his position. But at the same time, Tom Brady also has a tainted legacy because of the whole Deflategate and everything. And
Right.
he was caught cheating with Bill Belichick. If that happened to Derek Jeter and Derek Jeter was caught on steroids, like I said before, it would be such a big deal because of just who Derek Jeter represents.
It's also with Brady, it's also you have to say that the longevity is more impressive in football for obvious reasons.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Also considering the fact that
100%.
Brady's granted, Brady's had incredible protection for most of his career. But, the hits you take, Jeter, baseball, obviously longevity is great. There's 162 games a year plus playoffs. But, it's just it's hard to compare, in that way also, if you think about it that.
And also, even the greats, Derek Jeter is one of the few athletes who doesn't have a controversial legacy. Because what people don't realize, too, is that MJ had a gambling problem. MJ had a huge gambling problem. Tom Brady has been caught cheating. Even not Magic Johnson per se, but Magic Johnson had the controversy, not a controversy. Magic Johnson got AIDS, so that was a little bit of a problem that kind of tainted his legacy maybe a little bit. So all of these other athletes have a certain tainted legacy, whereas Derek Jeter, you really cannot say the same. If there was
Straight
one
up guy.
athlete if I want to say that I want my kids to emulate more than any other athlete on this planet, it would 100% be Derek Jeter. What do you guys think about that?
I have a fat head of him on my wall in my room. Unashamedly, we'll say that.
But would you guys say that even if MJ had that gambling issue, I feel like he's still probably the most iconic athlete in America?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Would you agree with that?
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan is the most iconic athlete, but I feel like the closest thing that we've seen, I think the closest thing I've ever seen in terms of just being able to convey values and how exactly they play, not just their performance. I would say is Derek Jeter. I can't think of another athlete in today's
It's just so hard because I feel like I feel like their careers were so similar, 6 rings, just such a larger than life athlete in their respective, cities. I don't think you can compare what they did on the field, and it just goes down to who they were as a person.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's also going to be interesting. Sorry to cut you off. It's also going to be interesting with the MJ documentary that's coming out. I think it's actually coming out sooner than it was supposed to, apparently.
I mean,
and I'm pretty sure Jeter is one of the people being interviewed for that. I could be wrong, but we're gonna kind of see at least. I mean, I'm not trying to get off topic here with MJ, but the people that we'll see in that documentary, one of which may be Jeter. Those are the iconic, that's who you think of, and when you think of iconic figures in sports.
You can't, like I said, you also can't compare a Tom Brady's production versus Derek Jeter's production. Tom Brady's 100% the better athlete because there is no denying that he's the best at an individual position.
Better in his sport.
Yeah,
definitely.
Oh yeah, 100%. No denying that. But in terms of just who I think is more iconic, I guarantee you, if you surveyed 100 people outside of even America and you had to tell them who's Tom Brady versus who's Derek Jeter, I guarantee you about 90% of them would know who Derek Jeter is. Or only maybe 50 to 60% would know who Tom Brady is.
I think it might.
It's a little harder because he's not retired right now. So
that's also true. You're comparing. And Brady can go on for another 3 years. Who knows with him? We'll see what the contract goes with Tampa Bay.
I think in 10 years it would be a different story, and it would be a little bit easier to talk about this. But it's really hard to say this guy who's playing right now at a top level is less iconic than someone. It's just hard to separate that.
I mean,
Jeter's going into the Hall of Fame this year.
As of right now, if I had to make the decision right now, who I would say is more iconic, I would say Derek Jeter. But let's say Tom Brady gets another ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he has 7 rings.
Huge legacy.
Huge legacy. So I think you really have to wait and see. But as of right now, if I had to choose one, as from what I've seen and what they represent, I would pick Derek Jeter. But I can't really argue either way.
I'm going to go Jeter as well. I'll admit some bias, but I do truly believe that as of right now, that would be it. But I can't really say no to either side.
No, I can't either.
Agreed.
But, I also think, I think Tom Brady needs, a moment. I think he needs, a throw. even with Eli Manning, not to compare Eli Manning to Tom Brady, 'cause obviously I'm not even going to go there. But like Eli
That's a
Manning
fun
also
one.
has like the Tyree play. Eli Manning has the throw to Plaxico Burress. He has the game in which he was getting destroyed by San Francisco and he kept getting up. Like
Manningham.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the one thing you could say about Tom Brady is that when he was smiling, you see the picture all the time when he won his first Super Bowl in 2001. That's one of the big ones you remember. But I think Brady needs to have more individualized, iconic moments to really cement his legacy as well. Because you see
I
that
think
with
his
other
greatness
athletes,
just comes
obviously.
from his consistency
Yeah,
year over year. Same guy, same
Okay.
level. To me, that's Tom Brady, consistent and amazing.
Do you think it hurts his legacy that he's not going to stay with the Patriots forever? Do you think that hurts him in the long run?
I think people will argue yes. I personally disagree. I think it's cool when a player will stay at the same team for a while. I think it would hurt him a lot if he went to Tampa Bay and didn't play well, because then people could be like, "Oh, maybe Belichick was the one carrying him," for example.
Agreed, 100%.
I don't believe that
Agree on
personally, but I could see people arguing that. Definitely, if he went and won a ring, that would be a huge boom to his legacy.
And yes, Tampa Bay does have a decent roster. I think these next 2 years with Tampa Bay, or however long it ends up being, will be very indicative. It'll be the last part of his legacy, because if it doesn't turn out well, it's gonna be like, well, this was kind of weird. It's like Jordan, once again, the Jordan comparison. It's like Jordan, going to baseball and then like coming back. Like it's a change. You have to commend the guy for trying to make a change and not just sticking with the same thing. I mean, he's already been with the Patriots for 20 or so years now. I mean,
Since,
change
2000.
is inevitable. Change happens in sports, and it'll be interesting to see how he does in Tampa Bay with that somewhat decent roster.
I don't think he can do anything to hurt his legacy that much, but he can really add a big deal to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's still going to be the greatest quarterback of all time after these 2 years, no matter what. But if he can win a ring with Tampa Bay, that's
pretty damn impressive. Yeah,
that's impressive.
So now we're going to move on to our next topic. This is a very interesting hypothetical, but we're going to move on to it. You got to pick one of these four players in their exact prime, all right, in the MLB. You got to pick Mike Trout, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr. Who would you pick and why?
Just to clarify, I'm pitching against them.
Like, let's say you had to start it. You have to build your team with one player, one of these four players. Who would it be? Yeah.
Okay. I think for me, it's pretty clear to me that it's just 01 to 04 Bonds.
Okay, so you'd say Bonds.
So steroids.
But we're gonna include the steroids with it because, like I said, with steroids, you still have to be incredibly good to hit all those home runs, even with the steroids. But I remember with Barry Bonds. Here's the thing about Barry Bonds: he had one season in 2004 where he had a 232 walks. I've never seen anything like this. He had his OPS. I think it was about 1,400. It was about 1,400 was his OPS. Plus, and his on-base percentage was over 600. You're getting on base more than 60% of the time you are at bat. That's like almost a cheat code, honestly. It's almost a cheat code.
He hit 362, 609, and 812 that year.
Oh yeah, it's a joke. I mean,
OPS.
That's probably in terms of who I would not want to face in a single season. 100% it's Barry Bonds. 100% from what he did.
And with Bonds, so we were talking about this before. There was a game against Arizona. From 1998. Arizona is this. So San Francisco's at home. Arizona's up 8-6. Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs, and Barry Bonds comes to the plate. They walked him.
They walked him with the bases loaded. That's what it says about Barry Bonds. How intimidated people were by him. 2. So
I think that's.
And the funny thing is, they ended up winning. I think they got the next out, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Because they're so afraid. They're so afraid of Barry Bonds, of just his presence, that they walked him with the bases loaded. That says enough about him.
See, that's what I think about when I think of Bonds. That exact moment.
And I mean, Sam, who do you think? Who would you, if you had to start a franchise with one of them, who would you pick in that round?
So yes, I understand the Bonds fear. The whole, he brings fear upon you. Personality, good for the game. Talent, I have to go and this might sound recency bias, I gotta go with Trout.
Oh yeah,
I
He-
Mike Trout.
He was definitely my second pick.
I mean,
He's
just
gonna-
in terms of Mike Trout. Sorry if I cut you off. Huh?
He's going to go down as he is. I should have looked this up. How old is he right now?
He's 28.
28.
He is
yeah.
28. He's 28. And he's already being considered one of the greatest baseball players ever. He's 20. I mean, just his accolade. I mean, the accolades, everything. I want Trout. He's an incredible fielder. Great
He's a
hitter.
5'2" player.
Great for the game.
Oh, I mean, going off what you were saying with Trout, I've never seen another player who could do more on a field than Mike Trout. I really have never. I mean, he is an unbelievable athlete, an unbelievable fielder. He's made a couple of incredibly good wall climb plays. He had a play versus Baltimore with Camden Yards where he literally went like against the wall. You remember that play, I think, where he like crashed into the wall and made the play. That was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. And
The thing with Trout is that I feel like there's no hole in his game.
No.
There's no hole in his game.
He used to strike out a line, and then he fixed that, and now he doesn't strike out as much, for example. So he finds a hole and he fixes it.
Here's the thing about Trout, too, that I think is just unbelievable. If you look at him versus the second best player in every other sport, the discrepancy between him and the next best player in baseball is by far the greatest out of any of the other sports. And you can't say the same for basketball, you can't say the same for football, and you can't say the same for hockey. Mike Trout is so far and away the greatest player. The distance between him and the second best player in baseball is so far and away the greatest compared to the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL.
I'm just curious. So who would you consider right now as second best player in baseball?
Second best player, maybe.
Bellinger?
Maybe Bellinger or Yelich, but they're not even on the same
Maybe Mookie? I'd probably go Mookie.
They're not even on the same stratosphere as Mike Trout. I mean, not even like you can't even compare them. That's what
I agree with you completely.
That's the thing about the NBA. I mean, LeBron James is right now probably the best player in the world. They're arguably the best player. But you could say Giannis. You could maybe make a case for Harden. You can maybe make a case that there's other guys who can maybe be LeBron maybe down the line. But you can't ever say for any of these players that they're even resemble the player that Trout does. You can't.
I mean, even when like the guys on MLB Network talk about it. I mean, this is just one source, but this is obviously like a specialized network. When they say the best player in baseball, they go Trout, and then there's everyone else.
Oh, yeah, there's everyone else.
There's that huge gap, like right there. And I think generally people who watch baseball, I would say that, quote unquote, the casual viewer, the problem is that Trout is on the Angels. And they're a West Coast team. No one wants to stay up unless you're a baseball fanatic like some of us are. You're not going to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning to watch Mike Trout play if you're a casual viewer. Otherwise, you're going to catch him on a highlight hitting a home run or whatever. But like the problem is that I love baseball. I haven't seen Mike Trout play on national TV that often. That's one of the problems. But still, if I were to start a team right now, I'd pick Mike Trout as my first player.
So
how do you think he compares to Griffey?
I chose Griffey in this one in terms of what I think they could do. Griffey, in my opinion, if he wasn't hurt with the Seattle Mariners, and he had the sweetest swing I ever saw. So Griffey has over 600 home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
630.
630, yeah. Griffey has 630 home runs. You could argue if he didn't get hurt in a couple of seasons when he was with Seattle, when he literally broke his wrist. He made one of these plays where he literally broke his wrist and literally went up against the wall and like caught it while he was like literally against the wall. It was an unbelievable play. But you could argue if Ken Griffey Jr. was not hurt, he probably would have hit 800 home runs. You could argue that. He was just that dominant of a hitter. Ken Griffey Jr. has 630 home runs, and he's a 13-time All-Star. Surprisingly, though, with Ken Griffey, though, he's only won one MVP, which is amazing to me. But
that's also – I think that's the thing with also him being on the Mariners. Same issue, West Coast, But also, I'm pretty sure the Kingdom is not an easy place to hit. I could be wrong on that.
He had the sweetest swing I ever saw in my life, like ever. Like out of all the guys mentioned between Bonds, Trout, and right now Griffey, even Arod too. I think, in my opinion, Ken Griffey had the best pure swing that you will ever see in the history of baseball. I mean, just in terms of the pure talent
sweetest swing ever.
Sweetest swing ever, yeah. And those 630 home runs. Let's not taking maybe let's let's give a hypothetical. Let's say he doesn't get hurt in a couple of those seasons. Do you think he gets close to 800 home runs? I say he does.
He does, but to me, that's a part of the game, you know? And I feel like longevity it is kind of a skill, even if it seems like luck.
It is. 100% is. Cal
It's
Ripken started with him. It's a skill.
It's also very difficult to – I think, in my opinion, Griffey and Trout are maybe – Trout doesn't have the power Griffey possesses, okay? I don't think people, when they go up to face Mike Trout, they're so just scared of versing him. Like, guys, when they verse Barry Bonds, you have shivers going down your stomach and down your skin when you verse guys like Griffey or Bonds. I don't really see the same intimidation factor. Not to say that Mike Trout is a great player, but he doesn't necessarily have that intimidation factor, in my opinion, Mike Trout.
You know why, though? It's because Trout is also one of the smartest baseball players that we've seen in a while. Where, I mean, yeah, we get it, you know, Griffey and Bonds, they could hit a home runs. They have the power numbers. The thing with Trout is not trying to hit a home run every time he gets up to the plate. He's trying to get on base and get around the bases to score.
I think that's just a product
yeah.
Sorry.
No,
I think it's a product of kind of like how baseball is nowadays. I feel like in the past that wasn't always the thing, where getting on base was the main thing. Now we know that is the main thing.
I mean, but yes, but also like, I mean, you say with the power numbers though, on the flip side of that argument, the power numbers have gone up over the years. Like, you don't even have to look at a stat for that. Like every it seems as though every year over the last few years, teams are setting home run records. Everyone's just trying to hit home runs.
It's with the juice balls.
Guys are trying to hit home runs. Meanwhile, Trout is just trying to get on base, steal a base, you know, play smart baseball and score. Like that's what he does, and I think that's why he's so great. He's not trying to hit – I mean, yes, he can hit home runs. And, I mean, how many home runs did he hit last year?
I mean, it's
45.
It's also amazing just how many bases Mike Trout.
Right, it's a lot, and you think he's not a power hitter. You know,
he puts up 45 homers.
He's got power.
Mike Trout also could steal plenty of bases too. Mike Trout is fast. He's athletic. His versatility in the outfield is unlike any. Out of all four of those players, his versatility in the outfield is unlike any we've ever seen, ever.
Like I said, he does not have a hole in his game. Not one.
Oh, there's no hole. I have to agree with you on that. So personally for me, I would take Griffey if I had to pick one of the four in their prime. But that being said, in terms of the person who I think maybe has the most absolute skill and does the most on the baseball field, I'd probably have to say Mike Trout too. So there's
no wrong answer.
There's no wrong answer there. I mean, they're so unbelievably amazing, all four of those guys, that you can't really go wrong either way. But so we have one guy for Bonds, we have we have Bonds, we have Griffey, and we have Trout, and they're all phenomenal players. So I don't really think you can go wrong either way on that one.
I don't think Arod is even. I mean, Arod was great, you know.
I love Arod, but he's not as good as those guys.
He also doesn't have the same, you know. I mean, now he seems like a pretty decent guy, but back then in his play,
with the steroids issue,
between the steroids, his issues with Jeter, he didn't seem like the greatest, you know, teammate you wanted to play with.
The thing about Arod too, Arod also played for three different teams. Arod played for Texas, he played for Seattle, and he played for the Yankees.
New York.
And he was great for all three teams. I mean, that's what you could say about Arod.
Arod's an all-time great, truthfully.
Oh yeah, he is an all-time great.
I just thought he's just not as good as these guys. It's not to take anything away from Arod at all.
No.
But even with the off-the-field stuff, it just takes a little bit out of it.
The only argument you can maybe make for Arod is that Arod has 3 MVPs. Arod won 2003, 2005, and 2007, where a guy like Griffey only won it once.
That too. Also, he's a shortstop, which adds to his value a little bit.
Also, I believe with at least one of those MVPs was with Seattle, correct?
Yeah, one of those.
Or was it with Texas?
Texas.
One of those MVPs, I'm pretty sure that their team was really, really bad, and he was like
horrible. Yes,
he was like the only. Was it Texas? I think it was Texas.
Texas, yeah.
They were really bad, and he was like the only bright spot. They were probably close to a last place team, you know, an Andre Dawson type of thing, you know, bright, you know.
And Trout won it. Trout won the MVP in 2014, 2016. And 2019. And arguably, you can make an argument he had the greatest rookie season in the history of baseball, even though he lost to Miguel Cabrera.
I think Trout should have like 7 MVPs.
Oh, yeah. If I'm looking at the most valuable player, I mean 100%. He's so far and away the most valuable player.
When you just mentioned Miguel Cabrera Triple Crown thing, when have you ever heard of a guy going for a triple crown in baseball and there's actually someone else that was close in the MVP race? Like,
That's true,
think
actually.
about
That's true, actually.
That's
To me,
ridiculous.
Trout
Yeah,
had
good point,
a
actually.
better season, which is it frustrates me a little bit because I know he won because of the Triple Crown. It's a big deal, right?
But the
But to me,
sabermetrics all
Trout had
indicated,
he had the better year.
That's
And the
that's
sabermetrics all
ridiculous
indicated
to
that
think
Trout.
about. Like,
No, that's like
incredible.
a guy. That's like a guy averaging, like for example, a guy could average 50 points, but like when you go against Westbrook, who had a triple double, averaged a triple double and won the MVP, you know, you lose the MVP vote. It's just unbelievable to me that someone who could actually win the triple crown, there could actually even be a conversation. That's how unbelievable Trout's season was.
Mike Trout needs some help. That's a different
Oh yeah, he
conversation.
does. I mean, not
He
you know,
needs
He
some
does, yeah.
help because he needs to get himself to playoffs in a World Series. Because I think the Angels have been to one. I believe they've only been to one playoffs in his entire career, and he's now been in baseball for 8 years now, maybe.
Yep, he got swept in his only ALDS.
He lost to the Royals, right?
He hasn't won a playoff
He
game.
has not won a playoff game.
Wow, that's incredible.
But signing Rendon is a good step to that. So
Yes.
I hope
yeah,
they can
I
get
forgot
some
about
pitching. They need pitching really badly.
I believe that's always been their issue. It's been pitching. That's very true.
They should have gone for Cole, but I'm not sad that they didn't.
I'm not sad about that either. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So we're gonna pivot a little bit from this topic, and now we're gonna talk about something else. We're gonna talk about the top 5 upsets, our top 5 upsets in the history of sports going forward. I'm gonna give you my top 5 right now, and then we're gonna move a little bit to Sam and Guy to give you their upsets. I'm gonna start off with the first of all, the most iconic upset in my opinion is the Miracle on Ice when the United States beat the Soviets. Soviets were coming off of 4 Olympic medals. They were the preeminent team in all of Europe and throughout the world. They were even killing all the NHL All-Star teams. So the idea that a group of collegiate guys could go up and beat the Russians with Vladimir Tretyakov and the goalie they had, Boris Mikhailov, and their coach was just unbelievable. That a group of college kids that was assembled by Herb Brooks would go against the greatest team in the world and beat them. That also signified a new era in the world that we weren't going to be second fiddle to the Russians anymore. And that kind of signaled the end of the Cold War. So this was the most important upset and definitely probably the greatest. Number 2, I'm going to go with this is a big one. I'm going to go with the New York Giants beating the undefeated Patriots in 2007. Tom Brady was 16-0. He's thrown for over 50 touchdowns, and Randy Moss had over 20 touchdowns in those seasons. So they had arguably the greatest wide receiver and quarterback combination in the history of the league. They were undefeated in the season, and the Giants were a 10-6 wildcard team that snuck in. One thing the Giants won these games was they were able to pressure Tom Brady and make him uncomfortable throughout the entire game with Matthias Kiwanuka and Osi Umenyiora. They were able to really seal the deal and be able to force Brady into making him uncomfortable. And additionally, they had the Tyree play, the throw to Plaxico Burress, and it kind of ended what was the greatest regular season run in the history of the NFL. And the third episode I'm going to go on that people kind of forget about is Appalachian State versus Michigan. Michigan was one of the top 5 polling teams in 2007, and they were 35.5-point favorites versus Appalachian State. Appalachian State was a team from the Division I AA or the FCS, and they actually won this game by a score of 34-32, and what is commonly known as the greatest upset in the history of college football. My fourth one is going to be the NC State versus the Houston Cougars in 1982 when Lorenzo Charles hit the bucket to win the game versus Houston. Houston had Hakeem Olajuwon, they had Clyde Drexler, and they had Michael Young, 3 players that all went to have great careers in the NBA. And you could argue that maybe Jim Valvano's team was a 6 seed, kind of snuck into the tournament. They had to win their conference, and they had to beat was arguably the greatest college basketball team in the history of the country as well. And the last one I'm gonna give is when Jim Harbaugh's led Stanford Cardinals beat the Pete Carroll led USC Trojans 2007. That was the largest spread in the history of college football till UNLV lost to Howard, which was a 45-point spread. That was a 41-point spread, and no one ever in their right mind thought that USA would lose to Stanford. But Jim Harbaugh led his team to a victory and beat a dynasty in USC. That kind of signaled the end of a dynasty when they lost to Stanford. So what are your top 5 upsets?
So I'm going to start this one off. I like the Giants Pats. I like the Miracle on Ice. Michigan State versus App State. That was also, I was watching a 30 for 30, not 30 for Yeah, it was a 30 for 30, something like that. 2007 was a crazy, crazy year for college football. There was also a bunch of other upsets, but that was a great one. I believe Appalachian State blocked a field goal.
They blocked the kick to win the game, yep.
And to win the game. That was a crazy game. So that was a fun year for college football. Also, I think this was an interesting one. UVA losing to UMBC, the only 16 seed to ever beat a 1 seed in March Madness. That was insane. I mean, granted, UVA came back last year and won the tournament, but, that was a great upset. And then another one that I don't think is as talked about as much because it's hockey, Columbus sweeping Tampa Bay in the first round last year of the playoffs. I thought I had written off Columbus. They weren't a bad team, but I was just like Tampa Bay. They may have set a points record. I think they had like 117 points during the regular season. They had one of the greatest regular seasons ever. And Columbus comes in and they just made them look really bad. I don't think Tampa Bay was really close in that many games. So I think for me that's a pretty good one. And that was also a great year for NHL playoffs, which is very much an underrated playoffs in sports. There was a bunch of other upsets, but I think that was – I should say sweeps, but I think that was a great upset. What are your thoughts, Guy?
For me, I agreed with some of you guys. I had the Giants-Pats, of course. I had the Greece Euro 2004.
That was a big one, too.
That kind of came out of nowhere. I also had the UVA versus – what was the other team?
UMBC, yeah.
UMBC, 1 versus 16. I also had the Miracle of Vice, obviously. And another one I had is the 2012 Champions League final, which was, if you guys don't know, it's European soccer. Bayern versus Chelsea.
Bayern versus Chelsea.
Deal about that was that it was in Bayern's home, so, an upset at home. So nobody really expected them to win that, and they obviously had the equalizer. I think it was the 86th minute, and then they ended up winning on penalty kicks. A crazy game.
I'm gonna go off the you starting to say something?
I just wanted to know what you guys thought is the biggest upset to you.
To me, I'm just going to touch upon a little bit more about the UEFA Euro 2004 when Greece won the UEFA Euro. When Euro, you have England, you have Portugal, you have Belgium, you have all these great teams that are even Russia too. Russia's a good soccer country, and you have France and Italy as well. So the idea that Greece was able to win this championship was so unbelievable that Greece is not commonly known. I mean, they have a couple of good club teams. They have Panathinaikos and they have Olympiacos in Greece. So they have a couple of really, really good club teams. But just the idea that Greece, a little island nation in the Mediterranean, was able to beat all these soccer powerhouses like Portugal, Italy, Spain, Belgium, England, it was just amazing to me that really that was probably one of the greatest upsets ever that I think never is really talked about enough because people don't really follow soccer as much. But that's just a huge upset in terms of significance as well.
Oh, by the way, they also won the final against the host country, Portugal.
Yeah, they won
that adds more to it.
Did Portugal have who did Portugal have? I'm blanking on his name.
Did Ronaldo? Was Ronaldo playing in 2004?
Or was it? He definitely was.
Check.
I feel like he was. I mean,
kind of a long time ago.
The greatest one for me is still going to be the Miracle on Ice. I think that's still the greatest one to me. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard because I didn't really grow up in that era, so I didn't really know the kind of significance and importance of the game. So I think it's kind of hard to really evaluate that one.
That was my point to that. I think the Miracle on Ice was an incredible upset and maybe was the greatest upset in sports history. I think it was more the significance of the win versus the actual, teams playing. I think the most significant I mean, UMBC, just to clarify for those who may not know, it's University of Maryland Baltimore County.
Yep.
The 16 seed beating. That was the first time that a 16 seed had ever beaten a 1 seed in the tournament. I think it kind of set up UVA then subsequently winning the championship last year. I mean, when you're the number 1 overall team, I think they may have been the number 1 overall team, and you get knocked out in the first round by a team that no one's ever heard of, that's pretty embarrassing. And they beat them pretty handily.
They destroyed them too. Yeah,
they beat them, I think, by it was like 20-plus points or something like that. I mean, it wasn't even a close. I mean, at the end, it just like UVA. Like it looked like UVA just kind of they lost their heart. They gave up, and they were like, they showed up. They weren't prepared, and so I think that was one of the greatest upsets ever.
Are you saying in terms of just complete difference in skill? It's how crazy is this upset that it happened?
Both, because I think the difference in skill is obviously there, but I also think it's also because it helps set
In the
up their
history, it never happened.
No, it never happened. They made history. I mean, I think
16s were like 1,000 and like 10.
They never won.
Yeah, they never won.
Because normally, I mean, granted, some of these 16. Yeah, I mean, granted, some of these 16 seeds are pretty decent. I mean, if you're gonna make that NCAA tournament, you may not have had a good regular season, but for those 16 seeded teams, that means that they ran through their own conferences, and maybe those weren't good either. But that means that they had to earn getting there. It wasn't just like they were, they were just placed into it. So they ran their tournament, and then they showed up, and most of the time, the 16 seeds are just written off, and clearly they didn't want to be written off, and they paid the price. UVA paid the price, not being prepared.
I mean, kind of going off like the skill set, I think the two biggest ones in terms of just the absolute skill were the UEFA Euro 2004 and just Greece. These guys who are competing against guys who play in the Premier League, the Bundesliga, even the leagues in Portugal, just playing against these guys who are known as these national powerhouses. The fact that Greece was able to win the Euro was just unbelievable to me. Even La Liga too, and then you have the league in Spain too, with PSG and PSG when the league they play in. I think it was just unbelievable that team from Greece was really.
That's the French league, I believe. Yeah, that's Paris Saint-Germain you're referring to. It's
Paris Saint-Germain, PSG.
PSG.
Yeah, PSG. Yeah.
It reminds me we missed a big one. Leicester City winning the Premier League.
Oh yeah, Leicester City. Leicester City wasn't exactly
That's my one. That's my one pick.
No, it's just Leicester City was a big upset, but like Leicester City wasn't one game per se. That's why like I'm just talking about one game. But in terms of the odds, on the odds though, Leicester City opened the year, I believe, about 5,000 to 1 going to win the Premier League. So that 100% is the greatest upset, and just a team winning a championship. 100%. I agree. But I'm looking at it in terms of just one game.
Or like a tournament-based system.
Yeah. But yeah, you could say Leicester City. Leicester City is a huge one, winning the Premier League that one year. Because Leicester City, I believe, was relegated a year or two before, right? They were almost relegated in the Premier League.
They almost got relegated the year before, and that was their first year back in the Premier League, I believe. And then they won the next year.
Yeah, just imagine like putting like $100 in Leicester City to win the Premier League.
Some people did.
You would have made millions. Like 50 million. I'm winning 50 million from putting money on a game.
By the way, just to clarify, the UVA UMBC score, UMBC beat them 75 to 54. Oh, I'm sorry, 74 to 54.
They killed
20 points.
Makes it more insane.
All right. So one of the next topics we're going to talk about right now is we are actually going to talk a little bit about this. We're going to have our baseball predictions. So who do we think is going to be really good this year in the AL versus the NL? So we're going to have Sam and Guy talk about this a little bit. So who do you guys got as some of the teams to watch out for this season, and who do you think is going to be able to get that pennant in each league?
Guy, you want to start off? I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so for me, I think the obvious best teams in each league would be the Yankees and the Dodgers. One team I do want to watch out for, and I see that we talked about this before, is the Cincinnati Reds. I think that I feel like people are sleeping on them, and they've made some really good moves in the past few years, like with Bauer. That makes me think that these guys can actually make a run for it.
I agree. Cincinnati.
What do you think about Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think they've improved a lot. I hate to say it, but it's Cincinnati. They usually manage to disappoint. I mean, this year they have Mike Moustakas. That's a great contract. Nick Castellanos. He still got Votto, although he's getting older. They have some younger guys who are pretty good. Jesse Winker, I like him a lot. Left fielder, a lot of power. Luis Castillo, new pitcher they've had for a few years. I think he was an all-star last year. Anthony DeSclafani, Wade Miley, like they actually have a decent pitching staff.
That's what excites me the most about them, their rotation. I like Bauer,
Yeah.
Castillo. Gray rebounded last year, which makes him more of a guy that you would hope would, pitch very well for them.
And
so I
that's
think it's just the top three.
I think that's a big thing. I mean, obviously pitching is incredibly important in baseball, but I think more specifically because Cincinnati plays in, as I like to call it, Great American Small Park. Pitching is more important just because they play in a ballpark that yields a lot of home runs. I think the hitting is there. The pitching is actually there. I like it a lot. They have some guys who I like who are pretty young, Nick Senzel, Eugenio Suarez. I forgot he was an all-star.
Eugenio Suarez hit almost hit close to 50 home runs last season.
Eugenio Suarez had 37 home runs last year. Votto still had 20. Moustakas had 30. Like, they have some power up and down this lineup. I like him. I think they have a pretty good roster going forward. They also got Amir Garrett out of the bullpen who can really throw some – he can throw a nasty right hook. I just wanted to make that – I thought that was funny. That whole fight they had in Chicago – not in Chicago, in Cincinnati last year. But in all seriousness, I do like their roster.
I think another big thing for them is that their division nobody's like in the division that you say is like, wow, this is one of the best teams in baseball. So I feel like it's very close in terms of talent level.
Well, Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, Pittsburgh is going to be horrendous.
Look, the Cubs and the Cardinals are both great teams. I just feel like they're not that much better than the Reds.
What do you think of Milwaukee? Milwaukee on.
I don't know enough. I
feel like they're a toss-up.
I don't know. I agree with you on that.
The way I see it is like everyone's kind of bunched together. Nobody's like, oh, this team is much better. Like the Yankees are much better than them.
I mean, I'm looking at Milwaukee's roster: Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun's older, Ben Gamel, Brock Holt, Justin Smoke. I mean, obviously Yelich.
Yeah.
Hit 35 homers last year. Once again, so their issue, Brandon Woodruff, I believe, was an all-star last year. But other than that, like, they acquired Eric Lauer from San Diego, but they're pitching Brett Anderson, Adrian Hauser. Nothing is, like, really stands out to me that much. Their bullpen, they have Josh Hader, who knows. Quite honestly, I think if they're borderline – If that's another story. If baseball happens this year, I hope it does. But if there's whatever deadline there is for trading, if they're not 100% in it, I could see Josh Hader being shipped off somewhere. I agree with your point. I think the NL Central is kind of
it's a bit wide open to me.
It's wide. Yeah, it's kind of a toss-up. Another team I think it's interesting to look out for is Chicago. Let me clarify the White Sox.
The
White Sox made a lot of great moves. They have Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu. They got in Edwin Encarnacion, which, as a Yankee fan, we all know how that went. Went. He was really good at striking out. No, he had some big home runs, but he was fairly disappointing. So maybe it was his spotlight. He's in New York. He still had 34 homers. They have Eloy Jimenez, who's a really good young left fielder. Nomar Mazara they got from Texas. I like
Michael Kopech is going to be healthy this year.
Michael Kopech is a good pitcher. They got James McCann, who's an all-star catcher.
They also got Keuchel.
Keuchel, I don't know what his deal is now. I don't know. I mean, he's bounced around. He was with Atlanta last year. Gio Gonzalez. I've heard this kid, Dylan Cease, is good. What were you saying?
They have a lot of young talent, which makes them exciting. I kind of feel like it's maybe a year too early to think that they're really going to make waves, but obviously they can. I love them long term.
Yes.
For sure. They could compete with the Twins. I could see that.
I like them fighting for a wild card and maybe coming up short. I think Minnesota might have the clearest path to a title a division title out of any team in baseball, quite honestly, right now. I
You don't
can't
think
really.
Cleveland could challenge them?
They made a lot of moves that I feel that hurt them.
What were those moves that you're referring to?
They got rid of Kluber for one.
That's true. He went to Texas.
What else did they do?
I mean, they still have Lindor.
Lindor. I really thought they were going to trade him, but I'm glad they held on.
If they trade him, I think they're giving up, quite honestly. I think he's the face of their franchise right now, and they can't – if they want to compete, they can't afford to give him up.
And isn't Carrasco injured?
No. Carlos Carrasco, actually, unfortunately, I think he was – I forgot I think he had cancer, some sort of cancer or something like that. I think he's making his way back into the bigs, but I could be wrong on that.
I see that a couple weeks ago he was shut down with an elbow issue.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was last year. Okay.
It doesn't seem to be anything that serious right now.
Okay.
But it's something to watch.
Shane Bieber was an all-star last year. They got Brad Hand, also an all-star. I see Oliver Perez on their roster. That's a funny one to see. He's still alive and throwing a baseball somehow. But I think the Indians will be okay. I mean, Jose Ramirez, Carlos Santana, they still have some of their core, but I think Minnesota is just too powerful. Minnesota, I believe they got Donaldson. They got some pitching. I like Minnesota in that division. What else do you see?
I agree with you that
baseball?
Minnesota is the top team for me in that division for sure. How do you guys think that the Astros will fare this year?
The Astros still gonna have incredible talent.
Yeah.
You still got Correa, you still got Altuve, still got Verlander. I mean, Garrett Cole went to the Yankees, obviously, but they still got a lot of pieces there. And I feel like overall in the AL West, I still feel like they're the best team in the AL West.
I mean, they should have their minor leaguers. They should have their minor leaguers playing right now. But that's another story for another day.
I agree with you. Yeah. Do you see the allegations and like all the stories about it all, like all the hype around it? Do you see it hurting them at all, or not really?
I think it's going to help them because it almost gives them like a chip on the shoulder. Like, we want to prove that we can win even without it. Like, that's what I think. Like, every time a team has a scandal, okay. So when the Patriots had any great dynasty, we'll see if this team is going to be a dynasty. We'll see. Because when the Patriots had the Spygate and the inflation gate, it only motivated them to improve their play. So I think it could actually have a reverse effect on the Astros because they want to we're the bad guy now. We got to prove everyone wrong. We're the team that everyone wants to kill. We're the team everyone wants to be after. So they're going to kind of want to squash that narrative.
Houston didn't really, I mean, other than them losing Garrett Cole to the Yankees, they didn't really – it doesn't look like they did much of anything.
No, they didn't really.
I mean, you don't really need to do much of anything when you make the World Series. So I don't.
Cole's a big loss, of course, but they're still the same team that made it to the World Series twice in 3 years.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I still like them. I think the Angels are the Angels. They still have pitching issues. Who else do I like in baseball this year?
Okay.
Do you think? Also, what about Oakland?
I'm going to ask you guys another question. We'll go on about Oakland, then I'll ask another question.
I was just going to ask, what do you think about Oakland? They made the playoffs last year.
Oakland what did they win? They won 97 games last year, didn't they? Or 95? Around that.
Just about, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So they hosted the wild card game.
It's kind of hard to evaluate. It's kind of hard to evaluate with Oakland because I definitely feel like Oakland has the pieces. That being said, I think they're in a division that could help them because I don't feel like the Angels are anywhere going to be so much better. I mean, I have the Angels as one of my wild card teams, actually. I think the Angels will be a little bit better. I just don't think that the Mariners or Rangers will really have the talent to really kind of keep up. So I think it helps them a little bit, their division.
The problem is that Oakland is still trying to play Moneyball. They're still playing Moneyball.
Bit, yeah.
I mean, they have – I'm looking at the roster. Marcus Semien –
Chapman,
star MVP candidate, Mark Hanna, Matt Olson. I like Matt Chapman a lot. Chris Davis, I mean, he's going to hit 40 homers but strike out however many times But I like Oakland. They have good pieces, as Hayden said, but I mean, they got to the wild card game last year, and they did not look good against it.
I think with Anaheim and Houston, I think those are two teams that are going to leapfrog. Anaheim and Houston, yeah. I think those are two teams that are going to leapfrog the Athletics next season.
I think the AL West is going to be a fun division. Definitely a lot more fun than the NL West.
And another question I have: can you think the Mets survive without Thor getting Tommy John? Do you think the Mets can kind of still be a good team this year, even though they lost one of their best pitcher, arguably, besides DeGrom?
Well, it's going to be tough for sure. I just can't see them because that's a big loss. Obviously, you're losing your ace. They already were kind of on the bubble in the first place, so just losing their ace like that, I just can't see that, really helping them at all. I can't see them making the playoffs with that, to be honest.
They didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, so they're going from if you could call them a bubble team this year to make the playoffs, and now they lose Thor. I mean, to me, it's just running uphill. It's nothing.
I think that's another very, very, very interesting division, the NL East.
That's definitely one to be excited about.
The defending champion Washington Nationals. Didn't think I'd be saying that. Atlanta's
great.
Atlanta.
Phillies are great. I like them both.
But Phillies, I thought they were going to be better last year, and I thought they
got Girardi too. They got Girardi, who's going to bring discipline and a baseball mind that could really help them move forward. So you got to think about that.
I also think Didi was a huge signing for them.
Didn't they also sign Wheeler?
They signed Wheeler. They got Didi.
Didi's huge for them.
Didi. Reese Hoskins leading the charge. Real Muto.
Yeah, the catcher.
They have a great lineup, top to bottom.
They do. They definitely have great hitting. Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Jake Arrieta, Zach Eflin, Vince Velasquez. I think they have a good roster. I think it's a matter of just putting it together and making it work. I mean,
yeah. Let's say if Didi rebounds to what he was a year ago before the Tommy John surgery, that's a huge bat in the middle of their lineup. They already have Harper. They have Hoskins. They have Real Muto. McCutcheon even. He could be great. And then, like you said, Nola, Wheeler, Arrieta. It's a great rotation.
I think the NL East is going to be the most interesting division in baseball. I mean, the AL East is usually a fun one. The Yankees, Rays, Red Sox. But I think the NL East is – I still like Atlanta. I have Atlanta, St. Louis, LA, the Dodgers, that is, Cincinnati, and I would say to watch for Cincinnati, but like I said, I'm not really sure on them because it's Cincinnati. I think the NL is going to be very interesting to see who grabs those wild cards. Maybe Washington, maybe the Mets, maybe the Phillies. It's kind of up in the air. And obviously we haven't started baseball, so it's really good. It'll be interesting.
Don't know if we'll ever get it, Tough.
I sure hope so. Who else do we have in baseball? But yeah.
What about the Rays? Do you guys see them making a real play for the division, or do the Yankees have it pretty much?
I think the Yankees pretty much have it, but I do feel like the Rays will be the second team in that division. I think they're going to surpass Boston and Toronto.
I just can't see Boston really making a big play without Sale and without Mookie.
I can't see it either. Well, Boston, what they're trying to do with Chaim Bloom, aren't they trying to rebuild so they can get assets so they can trade it away?
Yeah.
They want to build up their farm system, get picks. So I'm not going to say – I don't think they're going to be like 60 wins bad, but I think they're going to have a little bit of a down year. I could see them winning anywhere from 75 to 88 games anywhere.
Yeah, they're just not going to be contending for the division. I think it's either the Yankees or the Rays.
I agree with you. I think Toronto's going to surprise some people too with Bichetti and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think they're going to surprise some people.
Okay, let's look at – I'm just looking at Tampa over the last few years. Okay.
Tampa's won 90 games in a row, 3 years in a row. They almost beat the Astros last year.
So Tampa. So Tampa last year 96 wins, 18 90. 17 and 16 were down years, but the last 2 years they've had 90 plus wins.
Yeah, they have a good system there, Tampa, and they have a good.
They really haven't had. And they've had, they had one bad 68-win season in there. They had a 280-win season. So they're never in the last 5 or 6 years, they haven't really been that they had one really down year. Other than that, they've been pretty good. They've been consistent. I don't see them winning the division, but I like them as competing for a wild card and probably
So,
grabbing one of those
who
wild
would you
cards.
guys have as your two pennant winners? I'm gonna go the Yankees in the AL. I would say right now, if I had to pick one, I would say are gonna win the pennant. And I actually think I like the Atlanta Braves coming out of the NL.
Wow,
I actually
guy.
do. I think the Dodgers. I would pick the Dodgers, but the Dodgers have been known to choke from time to time. So I think the Braves could be a team that could really sneak in.
I'm going the
Yeah.
boring way. I'm going Yankees and Dodgers. I feel like they're the two best teams.
That's what I
A
feel
little
like. I
bit,
feel like the
a
two
little
best teams.
homer.
I agree with you are the Dodgers and the Yankees. But that being said, the Dodgers have a tendency to kind of choke in the postseason. But so do the Braves too. So I can't really.
They do. I mean,
It's
Mookie's
kind
a
of hard.
huge get. Cole's a huge get. And the two of the best teams in baseball just got even better. And I feel like a lot of teams that are contending, like the Astros, have done nothing to improve. So it's like they're getting better and everyone else is getting worse.
I gotta hop on the mainstream train. I'm going Yankees Dodgers just because if I had to put money on it right now, that's where I'm putting my money. Yankees Dodgers. I think Atlanta meets LA in the NLCS potentially, and the Yankees would love to see a rematch ALCS, without cheating this time.
I want the Astros. I want
I
them
like
bad.
I like Houston and New York in the ALCS and Atlanta and LA in the NLCS, and then go from there.
Anyone can beat anybody once they're in the playoffs, but
I
I'll
agree with
go
you.
with the
You
two
saw that last year
favorites
with
right
Washington.
now. Yep.
So I think we're gonna end our part one right now. We're gonna go into a little bit on a few more topics in our next segment, which is gonna be about a half an hour. So we're gonna end part one, guys, and we're gonna come back with part two. So we look forward to hearing from you guys, and we'll be back shortly.